The world may have ended, but keeping up with the Joneses has not. Use those hard-earned profits to upgrade your dwelling. When your home looks important, you are important. Now you've learned how to forge the new American dream. You are completely prepared to rebuild the greatest nation in the world. As a hand-picked resident of Vault 76, it is your duty to carefully review your Vault-Tec provided films yearly to fully prepare for the day when you will emerge.
Fallout is a saga of role-playing video games, which began in 1997. The story and aesthetics are very strongly influenced by the post-nuclear paranoia of the 1950s. After all, the story of the game also takes inspiration from these events, and shows us a world, product of human conflict. As of the year 2077, the remaining humans live in shelters, which protect them from outside threats. In a saga like this, it is relatively common to find curiosities and unusual events. In this video we will see some of those, starting at level 1, and slowly going down to level 5 where the most strange and disturbing ones are found. Level 1. The original Fallout game is unique, in that it presents the Vault Dweller, with a time limit to complete the main questline. These deadlines push a sense of urgency onto the player, making each completed quest feel much more rewarding. In the first game, the player faces the super mutants, to help the people of the Vault 13. At the end of the game, the Dweller managed to take care of the super mutants. The player is automatically taken back to Vault 13, expressing their gratitude for the Vault Dweller's actions. They've not only saved the inhabitants of Vault 13 but also the rest of the region from the super mutant menace. Unfortunately, the Overseer admits that he cannot welcome the player back to their home vault in Fallout. The Vault Dweller is a hero worth emulating, which is exactly what the Overseer doesn't want in Vault 13. He doesn't want the younger Vault residents to look up to the Vault Dweller, as it might give them ideas about leaving the facility. That would mean losing the best of the next generation, which would then leave Vault 13 unable to sustain itself. Thus, the Overseer ends his lengthy explanation with,
"You saved us, but you'll kill us. I'm sorry. You're a hero, and you have to leave."
This ending is really depressing, but there's another main ending in Fallout, and it's arguably the bad ending. This requires the player to join the Master and his army. The Vault Dweller will be turned into a super mutant in the process, as shown in a gruesome cutscene of them being dropped into a vat of acid. They'll also reveal the location of Vault 13. This then triggers a cutscene of the super mutants invading the vault and killing off all its inhabitants. The ending slide even says that the Vault Dweller personally took the Overseer's life. The Fallout series offers curious players a wealth of bizarre Easter eggs and encounters. Some of the most interesting ones are the following. The mysterious stranger has a chance to appear randomly and assist you when you select the perk of the same name. While exploring the Appalachia of Fallout 76, players may come across a friendly Mr. Handy named Mr. Squeeze running a sweet little lemonade stand. He'll sell a variety of items, most notably recipes for lemonade and hard lemonade. Another interesting encounter is Mr. Gutsy, a robot that will approach the player and inform them that a curfew is in effect, ordering the player to return home. The player can leave the area, though staying behind instead will initiate combat. When exploring the mostly deserted world, it is possible to come across something that looks like a tremendously huge footprint similar to that of a dinosaur. There's so many different encounters throughout the games, that will be impossible to mention every single one. Talking Head, is a term referring to characters in Fallout and Fallout 2, with digitized speech and animated heads, rather than just text showing beneath a centered image of the character's sprite. These heads were typically first created as clay models, digitized and touched up in the Lightwave program, textured with Photoshop, animated, and finally stored as two-dimensional animation frames. The final talking head is composited from these frames and static pre-rendered backgrounds, then overlaid on the screen. This is something that wasn't really common in video games at the time. Fallout: Brotherhood of Steel is a game of the saga that not many seem to remember, as it has been the biggest failure on the part of the developers of the game, Interplay. The main idea was to simplify Fallout and create an action game instead of a role-playing game. Another effect of this change of direction was a noticeable obsession with sex. Aside from how skimpily dressed many of the inhabitants of the wasteland were, the first NPC the player interacts with is a girl named Ruby. Instead of the 1950s music of the previous games, Brotherhood of Steel replaced the musical accompaniment with songs by heavy metal bands like Slipknot or Killswitch Engage. Even the game's very famous caffeinated soft drink, Nuka-Cola, was replaced with a real drink, Ball's Guarana, in a clear product placement maneuver. Brotherhood of Steel had a negative reception by the specialized critics and a poor number of sales. In a short time it became clear that it would not be the project that would save the developer Interplay. Harold is a recurring character throughout the saga and one of the most iconic. Harold was born in Vault 29, but eventually escaped, started his business but was continually attacked by mutants. Sometime between Fallout 1 and 2, a small tree began to grow in his head, a small gift from nursery. He named that tree Bob. After the destruction of the super mutant army, Harold decided to travel the wasteland again. After a while the tree in Harold's head has grown quite a bit, it even began to bear fruit. In the year 2250 Bob, the tree in Harold's head, becomes ill due to an unknown ailment. Even Harold suffers from Bob's illness, so Bob starts a journey in search of a cure. Although most people did not accept Harold because of his appearance, a tribe would help him, and the shaman would prepare a potion that would cure the disease. In Fallout 3, Harold was eventually crushed by the growth of the tree called Bob, and began to develop roots that kept him rooted to the ground during his travels through the capital wasteland. Because of his appearance he was worshipped as a deity. Harold developed an interesting mutation that allowed him to see the area around Oasis through the trees from Bob's seeds. He would use this ability to bring inhabitants of the wasteland, with the intention that some of them would put him out of his misery. Without much choice, or a place to go, Harold wishes to end it all and die, but later he will understand that he must live to keep the gift he has given to others. Level 2. Vault Boy is a symbolic appearance used in Fallout games to provide an iconic representation of the extras, stats, and character status available to the player. In addition, it appears in various in-game and out-of-game advertisements, manuals, products, and educational videos. Fallout creator Tim Kaine has confirmed that Vault Boy is based on Rich Uncle Pennybags, the mascot for the board game Monopoly. This character has become the icon of the game, so much so that even those who have not played Fallout may have seen this character. There is also a little curiosity in his iconic pose. It seems to be a common survival technique. In the face of a nuclear explosion, if you take on this pose and the mushroom blast is larger than your thumb, assuming you're still sufficiently far from the blast, you should run to avoid the radiation. Otherwise, it's probably fine, but running would still be best. After the tremendous failure that was Fallout, Brotherhood of Steel, Interplay, the original developer of the saga, did not have much choice but to sell the IP, because even before their last game, they had financial problems, as Fallout was not always a game that sold, and was in fact quite obscure and not so well known. Bethesda was the company that ended up buying the Fallout IP for $5.75 million. After this purchase, Bethesda would create a new installment of Fallout, Fallout 3, this game would change a bit the essence in the gameplay, if we compare it with the original games. Many fans don't like the direction the saga is taking, even more after how bad Fallout 76 was, but it is impossible to deny that if Bethesda had not acquired the intellectual property, there would be no more Fallout games. When it comes to the protagonists of Fallout, each one has his own merits. However, the Chosen One is commonly seen as the strongest character of all. The Chosen One is the direct descendant or grandchild of the Vault Dweller, from Fallout 1. The main argument as to why the Chosen One is the strongest character is that you're able to beat Frank Horrigan, who is a super mutant and an agent of the Enclave's Secret Service, and the final boss of Fallout 2. Another character that seems to be quite strong is the Courier, the protagonist of Fallout, New Vegas. This character is able to withstand shots to the head at the beginning of the game, in addition to having a great intelligence among many other things. It seems that the Chosen One is the favorite of many in terms of strength, but it is impossible to know for sure, as there is no direct comparison that can be made. This is a topic that was discussed a lot during the release of Fallout 4, as many players complained about the difficulty of the game from the beginning, even on the easiest difficulty. Fallout 4 has a very challenging start for some, and according to many players, it requires a lot of leveling up, upgrading weapons and getting the right equipment. Once you know what you are doing, the game is easier, but a player who does not have a lot of patience may get frustrated and quit. Even Bethesda has a section in their support about this issue. This is a theory of Fallout, New Vegas, which mentions that the key characters in the game each represent a letter of the special attributes, because their story or personality fits with each attribute that the letters represent. Strength, attributed to RNC President Aaron Kimball. Perception, attributed to the best of the Fermentarii, Ulysses. Endurance, attributed to the Courier, the messenger who returned from beyond the grave. Charisma, attributed to King. Intelligence, attributed to Caesar, who became leader of the tribe that held him prisoner, using only his words. Agility, attributed to Benny, who was known to fool everyone and come out unscathed. Luck, attributed to Mr. House, who overcame every obstacle life threw at him, including death. All this is based on the perk, the Meat of the Champions, which is awarded after eating the flesh of Kimball, Caesar, King, and House. If you use the cannibal perk on them, the stats that will increase will be the ones we mentioned before, according to each one. Level 3. In Fallout 4, there is a strange sphere-shaped object at the bottom of the ocean, around some pipes in the middle of nowhere. Although there are many underwater places to explore in Fallout 4, this object in particular created a lot of theories, basically because there is no other model like this in the game. It is completely original and Bethesda does not usually make new assets. In fact, it is the opposite, because many times they reuse the same assets from past games. Many have speculated that this was part of a DLC that never came out, or content that was cut, about a shelter or an underwater city. According to the Fallout story, the United Nations failed in 2052 and the planet's natural resources ran out, causing many small countries to go financially bankrupt and collapse rapidly. In late 2053, the United States closed its borders when a new super plague was discovered. In 2060, the European community soon dissolved into bickering, fighting over the last remaining resources on Earth. In the winter of 2066, China attacked Alaska over what were probably the last drops of oil in the world. The US responded with force, but it would be 10 years later when the conflict would end. On October 23, 2077, the United States, China, and other countries bombarded each other with a rapid exchange of nuclear missiles, which lasted 2 hours, without knowing who made the first strike. The destruction caused by the brief nuclear war was staggering, the devastation wrought in the first moments of the war unmatched by all previous world conflicts combined. And the survivors of the impacts and explosions quickly suffered the radioactive aftermath. The Fallout games take place several years after the Great War, explaining how humanity struggles to survive and attempt to rebuild civilization. While the iconic vaults are capable of protecting and providing for their inhabitants after the bombs fell, the reality is that the majority of the vaults found throughout the Fallout series were used to perform social and scientific experiments on the populations taking refuge within. For example, in Vault 112, residents were placed into a state of suspended animation and hooked up to a special virtual reality simulator. Subjects were originally told that the simulation would provide them with a perfect life, but it ended up being more like a VR horror game instead. The Vault 12 was designed with a purposefully faulty vault door that would not seal properly, allowing radiation to seep into it so that its impact on the human body could be studied. One of the worst experiments made in these vaults happened in Vault 75. Its stated purpose was to protect the school's students and their families in the event of a nuclear attack. Upon entry, the students' parents were separated from their children, and were summarily executed by the security staff, under the pretense that they were undergoing orientation. The children were then subjected to rigorous physical and mental conditioning. Those that did not achieve satisfactory results were disposed of once they reached the age of 18, and those that did were harvested for their superior genes. Earlier we mentioned the Great War, which was the main cause of the Fallout world looking like this, and as we saw, it is not known who launched the first attack. This is a theory that says that in fact Vault-Tec was the one who launched the first attack to start the war. The main motivation was to start with the experiments in the shelters. Since the war was about to end in favor of the United States, this would have been an obstacle to start with their research. Since the shelters would be useless, they needed an apocalypse to start operating. The theory is not impossible, because at this point the war was in a very critical moment, waiting for the slightest spark to explode. If this theory is true, this would take the evil of Vault-Tec to another level.
Whatever your target may be, take advantage of the resulting fallout.
Level 4. In the Fallout universe, there are robotic beings called Synths, created by the Institute to resemble human beings. They exist in 3 generations, the first of which was most limited in both mental capacity and physical design. The second has better AI but a clearly synthetic appearance. Then there's Gen 3, which are actually indistinguishable from real humans at every level, except that they can be programmed through neural implants. There is a running theory that the sole survivor from Fallout 4 is actually a synth. The game takes place in 2287, and a Gen 3 synth is known to have existed in 2277. It's possible that the body of the sole survivor was replaced as a synth with a neural implant before being reawoken. For many it was a shame that this was not confirmed, as there are many clues that support this theory, plus for many the story of Fallout 4 is quite mediocre, and this plot twist could have made it more interesting. In Fallout 4, we can find mannequins, but not just a few, but hundreds of them, which leave a vibe that something is about to happen, plus they can be found almost anywhere. The curious thing about these mannequins is that they can be found in quite peculiar positions, and that generates more questions. It seems as if someone had put them that way on purpose, perhaps to cause a scare to whoever finds them. To explain this, there is a lot of theories about it. One says that the mannequins are low-tech synths, set to spy on humanity. Others said that the mannequins are actually alive, explaining why they can be found in such strange positions. This was a myth used to scare children who misbehaved and was said to appear from a dog kennel at dusk to chase the children around with a toy knife. He wore a sinister clown mask, with jeans and a striped shirt. But far from being a simple tale, throughout the Fallout saga, we can find little clues that point to the Pint-Sized Slasher being real. He is described as a man rather than a boy, and he used a chef's knife. You can even recreate the story within the games, as this is one of those horror stories that the residents of Vault 112 have to experience. Van Buren is the codename Black Isle Studios assigned to Fallout 3. It saw development by Black Isle Studios until its cancellation in 2003 and would have been published by Interplay Entertainment. A tech demo of Van Buren was created during the game's development. Several screenshots and one video of the tech demo were released at the No Mutants Allowed site. Van Buren would have taken place in the American Southwest, where the westernmost sites on the game map served as the easternmost borders of New California Republic. Level 5. Ghouls are ex-humans turned into mutants as a result of slow radiation poisoning. They are biologically better equipped to traverse the post-nuclear landscape, and a decent portion of them retain their intelligence. However, some have gone feral, and as a result all ghouls are discriminated against. It's also possible that there's a mental battle that plays a role in the transformation. In Fallout New Vegas, you meet a ghoul called Jason Bright. He is known to be a feral ghoul that actually recovered his sanity, and is on a mission to help others of his kind do the same. This supports the theory that mental health influences the feral transformation, and that feral ghouls are people who have lost the will to live. The Fallout saga is set entirely in the United States, but information about what is happening in the rest of the world is rarely mentioned. It is very likely that the entire planet is in a similar situation to the one we see in the United States, because let's remember that the Great War ended civilization as we know it. Some smaller, less militarized countries may have been spared from the carnage. The sparse evidence suggests there are pockets of civilization doing just fine across the globe. Australia and New Zealand are US allies, but as distant islands perhaps they weren't chosen as victims of a nuclear attack, although this isn't confirmed. It is also important to mention that Vault-Tec was contracted by the US government to create the shelters, so the possibility of similar shelters in other countries is highly unlikely, but not impossible. In Fallout 3, we are introduced for the first time to aliens, who have been abducting people since the year 1600, and have been watching since then. The Zetans, as they are called, are the stereotypical aliens that we can find in movies, as they are evil and do not seem to have much liking for humans. This made many theorize that the Zetans were the ones who, in fact, started the Great War, since they have been observing since long before, and this would be a way to observe human behavior, the true nature they have. Before we mentioned another theory that Vault-Tec were responsible for initiating the conflict. However, many believe that it is impossible, because even if they wanted to carry out their experiments, why would they end humanity, if what they plan is to learn from themselves? If humankind were to become extinct, all discoveries would be in vain. It is also believed that the Zetans are in fact responsible for Vault-Tec. They created the shelters to be able to observe humans better. That would explain the inhuman experiments that are done in the vaults. The lore of Fallout is so vast that in this video we could only see a small part of it all. One of the biggest mysteries that still have no answer is who really started the Great War. Many theories have been made, but there is nothing 100% confirmed. Like this, there are many more mysteries that continue without a clear explanation, such as the Mannequins, the true intention of the aliens, the situation outside the United States, among many others. For example, because the caps are the best form of currency that exists in the world of Fallout, how did they come to an agreement? Who is the mysterious stranger? Is it another player, or maybe an hallucination? Is it true that there is a ghoul whale? How is it that people eat and drink radiation every day and are still alive? Why are there synths pretending to be humans? There is no doubt that Fallout is one of the few games which has a story and world building so well done. You can try to decipher some of these mysteries on your own, so you can experience all that Fallout has in store for you.